I never thought my marriage would go from conventional to complicated in the blink of an eye. Jessica and I had been married for 5 years when she suggested a living apart together arrangement to maintain her independence and personal space. Though confused and hurt, I reluctantly agreed because I loved her. She moved to an apartment 30 minutes away, and everything seemed manageable until her sister Amanda needed a temporary place to stay. That was when things started to unravel in ways I never imagined. Let me know where you are watching from and hit that like and subscribe button as I share how my life turned upside down when my wife wanted space but regretted it when her sister developed feelings for me. Jessica and I had what most people would consider a picture-perfect marriage before the LAT arrangement. We lived in a beautiful home in the suburbs, had successful careers, and genuinely enjoyed each other's company. I worked as an architect at a prestigious firm in the city while Jessica built her reputation as a freelance writer, specializing in interior design and architecture. Our professional interests complemented each other nicely, and we often bounced ideas off one another. We met at an architecture exhibition 6 years ago. I was presenting one of my designs, and Jessica was covering the event for a lifestyle magazine. She approached me with intelligent questions about my work that impressed me immediately. There was something magnetic about her confidence and curiosity. We exchanged numbers, had our first date the following week, and dated for 2 years before getting married in a small ceremony attended by close friends and family. The first 3 years of our marriage were wonderful. We traveled extensively, collaborated on projects, and built a life that felt meaningful and complete. But gradually, I noticed subtle changes in Jessica. She began spending more time in her home office, sometimes working late into the night. When I asked if everything was okay, she would assure me she was fine, just deeply invested in her latest writing project. Then came the evening that changed everything. Jessica sat me down in our living room with an unusually serious expression. "Steve, I need to talk to you about something important," she said, her voice steady but her fingers fidgeting with her wedding ring. "I love you, but I feel like I need more space for myself and my work." I felt my stomach drop. "Are you unhappy with our marriage?" "No, not unhappy," she clarified quickly, "but I feel creatively stifled. I need my own environment to write effectively. I have been reading about living apart together relationships, and I think it could work for us." She explained the concept: we would remain married but maintain separate residences. We would still spend time together, have date nights, and share our lives, just not our living space. Jessica had already researched affordable apartments near her favorite coffee shop downtown. "This is not about wanting to see other people," she assured me. "It is about having the space I need to thrive as a writer and as an individual." I was stunned. My first thought was that this was the beginning of the end of our marriage. I voiced my concerns, tried to understand her perspective, and suggested alternatives like converting the guest house into her private writing studio. But Jessica was adamant that physical separation was necessary for her creative process. When we told our families about the decision, the reactions were mixed. My parents were openly disapproving. My father took me aside and said, "Son, this is just divorce with training wheels. Once you start living apart, it is a slippery slope." My best friend Mark was equally concerned. Over beers one night, he said, "Buddy, I do not want to overstep, but are you sure she is not seeing someone else? This arrangement seems convenient if she wanted to explore options." I dismissed his concern, trusting Jessica completely. But his words planted a seed of doubt that would later grow into something I could not ignore. Interestingly, Jessica's family was supportive of the arrangement, especially her mother. "Modern marriages require modern solutions," her mother said during a family dinner. "If this helps Jessica write her novel, then it is worth trying." We established ground rules for our new arrangement. We would spend weekends together, either at my house or her apartment. Wednesday night would be our official date night. We would maintain our joint bank account for shared expenses, but have separate accounts for personal spending. Most importantly, we promised complete honesty and transparency. Jessica found a small one-bedroom apartment downtown and moved in with just the essentials: her clothes, books, laptop, and a few cherished items. I helped her move, trying to be supportive despite the hollow feeling in my chest as I drove home alone to our half-empty house. The first few weeks were strange and lonely. I found myself talking out loud to an empty house, forgetting momentarily that Jessica was not there to hear me. Our dog Charlie seemed confused by her absence, waiting by the door each evening at the time she used to come home. It was during this adjustment period that I first heard about Amanda's situation. During one of our weekend visits, Jessica mentioned that her younger sister had broken up with her boyfriend of 3 years and needed a temporary place to stay while finding a new apartment. "My place is too small," Jessica explained. "Would you mind if she stayed in our guest room for a few weeks? It would really help her out." I agreed without hesitation. Having another person in the house might actually help with the loneliness I had been feeling. Little did I know that decision would completely transform my life. Amanda arrived on a Sunday evening with 2 suitcases and a tear-stained face. At 27, she was 3 years younger than Jessica, but looked remarkably different from her sister. Where Jessica was tall and slender with straight blonde hair and a reserved demeanor, Amanda was petite with curly brown hair and an expressive face that revealed every emotion. Jessica introduced us briefly before heading back to her apartment, citing a deadline for an article due the next morning. The first few days with Amanda in the house were awkward. We moved around each other cautiously, both uncomfortable with the new living arrangement. She spent most of her time in the guest room, emerging only for meals or coffee. I tried to give her space, understanding she was going through a difficult breakup. By the end of the first week, the ice began to thaw. I came home late one evening after a challenging day at work to find Amanda had prepared dinner. Nothing fancy, just pasta with a homemade sauce, but the gesture touched me. We ate together at the kitchen island, making small talk about our days. "Jessica mentioned you are working on a new community center design," Amanda said, showing genuine interest. "Yes, it is a passion project," I replied, surprised by her knowledge of my work. "The neighborhood really needs a space for after-school programs and community events." "That sounds amazing. I would love to see your design sometime if that is not weird." I showed her my preliminary sketches after dinner, and her enthusiasm was refreshing. Jessica had always supported my work but had grown less interested in the details over time. Amanda asked insightful questions and offered perspectives I had not considered. This became something of a routine. Amanda would often cook dinner on nights when I worked late, and we would discuss our days. I learned she worked as a kindergarten teacher and loved classical music, a passion I shared, but Jessica did not. Soon we were playing symphonies during dinner and discussing our favorite composers. One evening, Amanda helped me work through a design problem I had been struggling with for weeks. Her suggestion to incorporate a modular layout for the community center's main hall was brilliant, allowing the space to be reconfigured based on different community needs. Meanwhile, Jessica seemed increasingly distant. She began canceling our weekend plans, citing work commitments. Our Wednesday date nights became sporadic, with Jessica often rescheduling at the last minute. When we did spend time together, she seemed distracted, constantly checking her phone or steering conversations toward her writing projects rather than asking about my life. As Jessica's presence in my life diminished, Amanda's grew. We fell into comfortable routines: Friday night movies with takeout food, Sunday morning runs in the park, cooking elaborate Sunday dinners together. I found myself looking forward to coming home, knowing Amanda would be there with her warm smile and genuine interest in my day. One evening, as we washed dishes after dinner, Amanda mentioned casually, "Jessica seems really involved with that new writer friend of hers." I paused, a plate dripping in my hand. "What new writer friend?" Amanda looked surprised. "Thomas, something, the historical fiction guy. She mentioned they have been workshopping each other's manuscripts. I thought you knew." I did not know. Jessica had mentioned joining a writer's group, but never specified she was working closely with one particular writer. I tried to dismiss the unease. I felt telling myself professional collaborations were normal and healthy, but doubts began to creep in. Why had Jessica not mentioned Thomas? Why were our weekends together becoming less frequent? Was the LAT arrangement really about creative space, or was there more to the story? The situation grew more complicated when I accidentally walked in on Amanda changing clothes. I had knocked on the guest room door to ask about dinner plans, and hearing what I thought was a response, opened the door. Amanda was in the middle of changing her shirt, and for a brief moment we both froze in surprise. I apologized profusely and closed the door immediately, but the image lingered, not just her physical appearance, but the look of startled vulnerability on her face. That night, I found Amanda sitting on the back porch staring at the stars with a glass of wine. I hesitated before joining her, still embarrassed about earlier. "I am so sorry about barging in," I said, taking the chair beside her. "It is fine, Steve. Accidents happen." She smiled reassuringly then. Her expression grew serious. "Can I talk to you about something personal?" She opened up about her breakup, explaining that her ex-boyfriend had cheated on her with a coworker. "The worst part was the betrayal of trust," she said, voice breaking slightly. 3 years together, and he threw it away for someone he had known for 3 months. Without thinking, I reached out and covered her hand with mine. "I am sorry, Amanda. You deserved better." She looked up, eyes shimmering with unshed tears, and suddenly we were hugging. It was an innocent embrace, one friend comforting another, but something shifted in that moment. As we pulled apart, there was a new awareness between us, an unspoken recognition of growing feelings that neither of us had intended. Jessica's first unexpected visit came the following Saturday morning. She had canceled our weekend plans the night before, claiming to be on deadline for an article. Yet there she was, at 9 in the morning, coffee and pastries in hand, a bright smile that did not quite reach her eyes. "I finished my article early and wanted to surprise you," she explained, kissing my cheek, as she breezed past me into the kitchen. Her eyebrows rose slightly when she found Amanda already there making pancakes and listening to Beethoven's Symphony No. 7 apiece. Jessica had always found boring. "Good morning, sis," Amanda said cheerfully. "Want some pancakes? I was just making breakfast for Steve and me." "Steve and I," Jessica corrected automatically, a habit from her writing background. "And no, I brought pastries from Bellini's." Throughout breakfast, Jessica seemed to be marking her territory. She sat unusually close to me, placed her hand on my arm frequently, and kept steering the conversation toward private jokes and memories that excluded Amanda. The tension was palpable. After that morning, Jessica began visiting more regularly and with less warning. She would call from outside the house saying she was in the neighborhood and thought she would stop by. She brought small gifts, suggested spontaneous date nights, and generally reasserted her presence in our shared home, though she still returned to her apartment each night. The situation came to a head during a dinner with Jessica's parents. They had invited us to their home for their anniversary celebration, and Jessica insisted Amanda join us. Looking back, I think she wanted to observe Amanda and me together in a social setting. During dinner, Jessica's father commented on how well Amanda and I got along. "You two seem to have a lot in common," he observed, reaching for the wine bottle. "Jessica tells us you have been a big help to Steve with his community center project, Amanda." "She has been invaluable," I confirmed, smiling at Amanda. She suggested the modular layout that solved our biggest design challenge. "That is funny," Jessica's mother chimed in, because Jessica never mentioned being interested in your architectural projects. "Different sisters, different interests, I suppose?" Jessica's face tightened almost imperceptibly. "I have always supported Steve's work," she said, her voice carrying an edge. "I just express it differently." The rest of the dinner was uncomfortable, with Jessica making pointed comments about the boundaries between sisterly affection and something more inappropriate. Amanda grew quiet, answering questions politely, but volunteering nothing. On the drive home, Jessica suggested ending the LAT arrangement. "I think the experiment has run its course," she said, staring out the passenger window. "I miss living together. We should go back to normal." I was surprised by her sudden change of heart. "What about your creative space? Your writing, I can work around it," she said vaguely. "The apartment lease is up in 2 months anyway. I promised to think about it, but something felt off." After dropping Jessica at her apartment, I returned home to find Amanda waiting up. "Can we talk?" she asked, her expression serious. We sat in the living room, the space between us on the couch, feeling charged with unspoken tension. "I need to tell you something, and it is going to complicate everything." Amanda began, her voice trembling slightly. "I have developed feelings for you, Steve. Real feelings. I did not mean for it to happen, and I feel terrible because you are my sister's husband, but I cannot pretend anymore." I sat in shocked silence as she continued. Jessica does not appreciate what she has. This LAT arrangement, it is not fair to you. And I have reason to believe she is not being completely honest about her reasons. What do you mean, I asked, though part of me already knew. Thomas is not just a writing colleague, Amanda said quietly. I saw them together at a restaurant last month, and they were definitely not discussing manuscripts. I did not want to tell you because I was not certain, but now I am. Are you saying she is cheating on me? The words felt foreign in my mouth. I am saying she wanted the LAT arrangement to explore other options while keeping you as a safety net. You deserve better, Steve. You deserve someone who wants to build a life with you, not apart from you. Amanda moved closer, her hand finding mine. Someone like me, she whispered, leaning in to kiss me. I pulled back, standing abruptly. Amanda, stop. I cannot do this. Regardless of what Jessica may or may not be doing, I am still married to her, and you are her sister. This situation is already complicated enough. Hurt flashed across Amanda's face before she composed herself. I understand. I am sorry. I should never have said anything. That night I could not sleep. I kept thinking about Jessica, about Amanda's accusation, about our once solid marriage now crumbling into confusion. I needed to know the truth. The next day I drove to Jessica's apartment unannounced. I had never done this before, always respecting her space as agreed in our arrangement. I knocked, but there was no answer. Using the emergency key she had given me, I let myself in. The apartment was empty. But evidence of Jessica's life was everywhere: coffee mugs in the sink, manuscripts spread across the dining table, a sweater thrown over a chair. I noticed her laptop open on the coffee table. I had never invaded Jessica's privacy before, but doubt and suspicion pushed me forward. Her email was open, and there it was, dozens of exchanges with Thomas dating back 8 months, long before the LAT arrangement was proposed. The messages grew increasingly intimate over time, with plans to meet and discussions about their situation. One email from Jessica read, I think the LAT idea is the perfect solution. Steve will have his space, I will have mine, and we can figure out what this thing between us means without hurting anyone. I felt physically ill. Everything had been a lie. The separate living arrangement had never been about creative space or independence. It had been about creating opportunity for deception. When Jessica returned to her apartment an hour later, she was not alone. Thomas was with her, his arm casually around her waist as they walked through the door. They froze when they saw me sitting on the couch. Steve, Jessica stammered, "What are you doing here?" I think the better question is, what are you doing? I replied, my voice unnaturally calm, despite the storm raging inside me. And who exactly is Thomas to you? Thomas had the decency to look uncomfortable. I think I should go, he mumbled, backing toward the door. No, stay, I said. This involves you too. What followed was a painful confrontation. Jessica initially denied any impropriety, claiming Thomas was just a close colleague. When I mentioned the emails, her denials crumbled. Fine, yes, we have grown close, she admitted. But nothing physical has happened. Yet I added, nothing physical has happened yet. But that was the plan, was not it. That is why you wanted to live separately. Jessica's expression changed from defensive to accusatory. What about you and my sister? Do not think I have not noticed the way you two look at each other. The inside jokes, the music you listen to together, the late-night conversations. There is nothing going on between Amanda and me. I insisted, though. The memory of Amanda's confession and attempted kiss flashed through my mind. Oh, please, Jessica scoffed. She has always wanted what I have. My toys as children, my clothes as teenagers, and now my husband. The argument escalated with Jessica calling Amanda to come over so we could settle this once and for all. Amanda arrived 30 minutes later, confused and alarmed by the urgency in Jessica's voice. What ensued was one of the most uncomfortable conversations of my life. Jessica accused Amanda of trying to steal her husband. Amanda accused Jessica of cheating and using the LAT arrangement as a cover. I sat between them, watching the sisters tear into each other with years of pent-up resentment and rivalry spilling out. You never appreciated Steve, Amanda shouted, tears streaming down her face. You pushed him away and expected him to just wait around while you explored your options with Thomas. And you were right there to comfort him, weren't you? Jessica fired back. My own sister, how could you? I did not plan to fall for him, Amanda said, her voice breaking. But at least I recognize what an amazing person he is, which is more than you ever did. The argument culminated with Jessica demanding Amanda move out of our house immediately. Amanda, hurt and angry, agreed it was for the best and left to pack her things. Later that night, while going through Jessica's text messages, something I never thought I would do but felt justified given the circumstances, I discovered the most painful truth of all. The relationship with Thomas had begun before she ever suggested the LAT arrangement. The separate living situation had been carefully orchestrated to facilitate her affair while keeping me as a backup plan. Every explanation about creative space and independence had been a carefully crafted lie. The following days were a blur of pain, anger, and difficult decisions. After the truth came to light, I knew I needed to take control of my life again. The deception had gone too far and the trust was irrevocably broken. I asked Jessica to meet me at a neutral location, a quiet coffee shop where we had once spent Sunday mornings early in our relationship. She arrived looking tired and apprehensive, her usual confidence diminished. I have been doing a lot of thinking, I began, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. And I need you to make a decision. Either we end the LAT arrangement, immediately commit to rebuilding our marriage with complete transparency and couples counseling, or we get divorced. There is no middle ground anymore. Jessica reached for my hand across the table. I want to come home, Steve. The LAT was a mistake. I see that now. We can fix this. Looking into her eyes, I saw not remorse for her actions, but fear of losing what we had. Is it because you genuinely want to save our marriage, or because you are afraid I might end up with Amanda? Her hesitation told me everything I needed to know. That is what I thought, I said quietly. Jessica, I am filing for divorce. The papers will be ready next week. I also needed to address the situation with Amanda. I asked her to meet me at a park near our house, a public place where we could talk honestly without the charged atmosphere of home. Amanda, I value our friendship and the support you have given me, I told her as we walked along a tree-lined path. But I need to set some clear boundaries. I cannot be anything more than a friend to you, especially now. She nodded, wiping away a tear. I understand. I never meant to complicate your life further. I should have kept my feelings to myself. You should find your own place, I continued gently. Not just for my sake or Jessica's, but for yours too. You deserve a fresh start away from all this drama. You are right, she agreed. I have already started looking at apartments. I will be moved out by the end of the week. And Amanda, I added, I think we should keep some distance between us for a while. Give the dust a chance to settle. Give your relationship with Jessica a chance to heal. The pain in her eyes was evident, but she nodded in understanding. With both relationships addressed, I focused on rebuilding my life. The divorce proceedings were straightforward but emotionally draining. Jessica did not contest anything, perhaps out of guilt, or perhaps because she was already moving on with Thomas. I threw myself into work, finding solace in the community center project that had once brought Amanda and me closer. I made several design changes, removing the elements she had suggested, not out of spite, but to create something that was wholly mine again. To process my emotions, I booked a solo trip to Japan, a country I had always wanted to visit, but Jessica had never been interested in. For 2 weeks, I explored Tokyo, Kyoto, and Osaka, finding peace in Zen gardens and perspective from ancient temples that had weathered centuries of human drama. When I returned, I joined a support group for people going through divorce. Hearing others' stories helped me realize I was not alone in my pain and confusion. One of the most valuable lessons I learned was the importance of setting healthy boundaries in all relationships. I reconnected with friends I had neglected during my marriage, particularly Mark, who had warned me about the LAT arrangement. We never spoke the words "I told you so," but his supportive presence was healing in itself. A year passed. Jessica moved to Chicago to pursue a publishing opportunity, putting welcome distance between us. She occasionally sent emails checking in, which I answered politely but briefly. Amanda and I maintained sporadic contact, carefully friendly text messages about job updates or family news. She had found a teaching position in a neighboring town and was dating someone new. As for me, I eventually began dating again, cautiously at first. I met Laura, a landscape architect, at a professional conference. Our relationship developed slowly with clear communication and shared expectations. I was more aware of my needs and more vocal about them, lessons hard-won from my failed marriage. Looking back now, I realize the LAT arrangement was not the cause of our marriage's demise, but a symptom of problems that already existed. Jessica and I had grown apart long before she suggested separate living spaces. The deception was inexcusable, but the desire for space was perhaps her way of acknowledging the distance already between us. The experience taught me several profound lessons. First, marriage requires complete honesty and commitment. There are no shortcuts or half measures. Second, sometimes pain is necessary to see the truth that has been in front of you all along. Third, healthy boundaries are essential in every relationship, romantic or otherwise. And finally, true freedom comes not from escaping commitment, but from knowing what you want and being honest about it, both with yourself and others. I am grateful now for having had the courage to stand up for myself and my values. The experience, though painful, led me to a more authentic life and a deeper understanding of what I truly want in a relationship. What about you? Have you ever experienced a situation where setting boundaries saved your self-respect? Drop a comment below and let me know your thoughts. If this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear it. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember, sometimes the most painful endings lead to the most beautiful beginnings.